Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. My name is Catherine Morris. I'm the chair of the Transportation Standing Committee. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We also recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched this part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Could I get approval of the minutes, please? So moved. All in favor? Anyone against? Passes. Thank you. Could I get the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions? Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk, are there any additions and deletions?
There's no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Okay. Could I get approval of the order of business? So moved by Councillor Cleary, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Purdy, all in favor? The motion passes. Is there any business arising out of the minutes? No? Would anyone like to declare a conflict of interest? Seeing none, there are no motions of reconsideration, no motions of rescission, which brings us to consideration of deferred business, the Halifax Transit 2025-26 second quarter KPI report. And we have folks from Transit here.
Chair, we just need to pass the motion to hear the presentation, and then we can have it.
Could a member put the motion on the floor, please? Councillor Cuttle, or Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Transportation Standing Committee receive the staff report dated December 18th, 2025 for information and receive a presentation.
Seconded by Councillor Purdy. Thank you. Thank you. And could I see a show of hands, please? The motion passes. Thank you. So, welcome. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Hugh Burns. I'm the Director of Transit Fleet. Today I'm here to present the Q2 performance metrics for Halifax Transit. Q2 includes July, August, and September of 2025. Our first metric is ridership. During this period, our system-wide boardings remained steady compared to the same quarter last year at 8.4 million. Conventional bus boardings decreased by 1% on weekdays, increased 4% on Saturdays, and decreased 4% on Sundays compared to last year. Boardings on express and regional express services increased by 3%. The overall lack of growth in boardings is likely due to the fare increase implemented in September of 2024, which caused growth to flatten out. Ferry boardings increased by 10% and Accessibus boardings decreased by 1%. The increase in ferry boardings can be attributed to dry and sunny weather during summer of 2025, which would have encouraged more trips. Worth mentioning, the Route 10A, B, and C had 42% more boardings compared to the previous year. This can be attributed to the additional frequency introduced in November of 2024 on the Route 10. Most transit routes are meeting ridership guidelines. Routes that are not meeting guidelines during some service periods this quarter include routes in the lower density suburban areas, such as the 84, 64, and 55, rural routes 401, 415, and 433, and limited service routes such as the 26, 50, and the 93. Next, I'll speak to passenger overloads. Passenger overloads remain higher than we would like, but have decreased by 17% compared to the same quarter last year, in part due to mitigating measures to limit loss of service and replace lost and late service. Over 77% of passenger overloads occurred on corridor routes. More than half of overloads occurred during the weekday afternoon peak period. Routes with the most significant changes between Q2 24 and 25 and Q2 25-26 include decreases in reported passenger overloads on the routes 3, 4, 5, and 6A, B, and C. An increase in passenger overloads on routes 9A and B and the 90. Service increases are required in many areas to meet increasing demand, and some of those were presented earlier as part of the core service plan. On-time performance. Compared to last year, on-time performance has decreased from 70% to 67%, remaining well below the target of 85%. On-time performance remains a key priority to resolve. A service reliability review is being conducted and will provide more analysis and actions. The completion of the bus lane on Bayers Road and the Windsor Street Exchange will help improve the on-time performance of routes using these corridors. However, further impacts to schedule adherence are expected in the short term during construction. Loss of service. In Q2 25-26, the total loss of service on conventional bus routes was 1,568 hours, or 0.7% of scheduled service hours. This is a decrease from last year, where there were 2,170 lost service hours. 41 ferry trips were also canceled, representing a 0.3% loss of scheduled service. Revenue. Revenue has increased by 7% in Q2 25-26 compared to the previous year, up from $9.55 million to $10.18 million. Revenue from conventional bus service increased by 6%, and revenue from ferries increased by 13%. These increases in revenue can be attributed to the fare increase in September of 2024. The way riders pay fares continues to evolve. Paper ticket and pass purchases have decreased, while other methods have increased. Specifically, fares paid through Halifax Transit's Halifax Go mobile fare payment app increased by 19% in Q2 to $4.12 million, accounting for 40% of fare revenue collected. Participation in programs has increased 10% to a total of $1.72 million in revenue. These include the UPass program for full-time post-secondary students and programs offered in partnership with the Nova Scotia Department of Opportunities and Social Development. Fares paid through paper products, including tickets and passes, have decreased by 5% and now make up 31% of the fare revenue. Fleet. Bus maintenance costs in Q2 25-26 were $1.26 per kilometer, 3% below the budgeted price of $1.30 per kilometer, which is good news. There were fewer failures and service calls for conventional buses compared to the same period last year, resulting in a mean distance between failures of 10,400 kilometers, exceeding the benchmark of 9,000 kilometers. This can be attributed to the phased replacement of older diesel buses with new electric buses. The mean distance between service calls for Accessibus was 71,600 kilometers in Q2, which is a 58% decrease from the previous year. Accessibus mean distance between failure can fluctuate significantly due to the relatively low number of service calls. That brings us to collisions. In Q2 25-26, there were 235 collisions involving Halifax Transit conventional buses or Accessibus vehicles. Overall collisions decreased by 13%, while preventable collisions decreased by 30%. The lower rate of preventable collisions during this period reflects the effectiveness of operator training, safety protocols, and ongoing risk mitigation efforts. Most collisions, 72%, involved another vehicle, underscoring the challenges of operating in a mixed traffic environments and reinforcing the importance of defensive driving and public awareness. The remaining 28% of collisions involved mostly objects, highlighting environmental and roadway factors that are often outside operator control and reinforcing the need for continued investment in safety initiatives, training, and infrastructure improvements. Operator recruitment and retention. Operator recruitment trended positively this quarter, with 10 net new operator positions being filled. This helps to improve the workload of existing staff while also mitigating risks to service reliability. Recruitment and retention will continue to be a priority for Halifax Transit. Our key takeaways. Boardings and revenue remain strong. Growth in revenue can be attributed to the fare increase implemented in September of 2024. The fare increase also likely contributed to the lack of growth in ridership. Ferry ridership increased compared to the previous year, which could be attributed to dry and sunny weather during the summer. Passenger overloads remain elevated, but have decreased due to mitigating measures to limit loss of service and replace loss or late service. Service increased are required in many areas to meet demand and were proposed in the core service plan. On-time performance decreased this quarter and remains well below target. This remains a key priority to resolve. The completion of the bus lane on Bayers Lake and Windsor Street Exchange project will likely improve on-time performance once completed, but will impact on-time performance during construction. The mean distance between failures for conventional buses was well above benchmark this quarter, attributed to the replacement of diesel buses with new electric buses. This ongoing replacement will further improve metrics in the short term. However, the aging fleet of articulated buses may cause this metric to decrease. Replacing articulated buses is essential to maintaining network capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Do we have any questions from committee members? Councillor, Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for the report. This one got deferred from the last meeting we had, and I think it was important to kind of look at this along with our core service plan to kind of see where adjustments, why we're making certain adjustments in the core service level plan, in part related to the KPIs that you're presenting. There's two things that I kind of want to highlight in here. One is the 9AB and the incidents of passenger overloads that have actually doubled from this time last year. I mean, that's significant. And when we were talking about this issue last year, we were discussing ways that we're going to try to address the overloading. Rather than address it, we've seen it get significantly worse. It's gone from 62 incidents of overloads this time last year to 130, more than double. It's the third most used route in the city, very close to the 1 and 3. There's a lot of people in Spryfield and Herring Cove that rely on this service because they don't have a car. They need it to get to work. It's impacting people's daily lives, and we really need to find a solution to this. So maybe you could just give me a little bit more insight in how we ended up doubling the number of overloads in a year. The other piece I wanted to talk about was the 415, and it is noted as one of the routes that has one of the lowest performing routes. In particular, I look at the AM peak at 7 passengers per hour. I don't see anything noted in here about the cancellation of that bus. Now, I don't know if a bus doesn't show up and isn't formally canceled but can't make its route because it's busy servicing other routes is an official cancellation. I don't know how you mark cancellations or how those are accounted for, but in that AM peak, particularly for the 8:30 bus, sometimes it just wouldn't show up. And so when a bus doesn't show up, you have potential riders that then need to take a cab, need to get a lift from a neighbor. Some of them walk like the 20 to 30 minutes to the next bus stop to catch a bus. In the winter, this is especially dangerous because the snow. We don't have sidewalks out there, so I have people walking in the roadway. But the riders, if the buses don't show up or are 45 minutes late, you're going to have a decrease in passengers. So where does that get captured in the report, and how does that get accounted for? Thank you. And how many buses can I get a sense, because I hear from residents when the buses don't show up, like I get the phone calls. So I just don't know where that metric shows up, or how often is that occurring, and why is that occurring, and what's being done to address it? Because if you cut a route for low performance because you don't have enough passengers, but you can't have passengers if you don't have a bus, you can you can see the dilemma there.
Patricia Hughes, Director of Planning and Customer Engagement with Halifax Transit. Maybe I'll start with the Route 9, and certainly the comments were correct about the increased number of overloads. One of the things I guess I can offer, and I think it is relevant that does align with the core service plan and where we're recommending service increases. We do show overloads in the reports and have for some time. We also do have loss of service, which I think is on the 4th page of the attachment, but it doesn't go in as much detail. And we have been looking at the Route 9, and I think something else that we can offer is that the loss of service has also increased significantly. So sometimes an overload is just because there's a lot of people at a given time, and sometimes an overload is really, because the trip before didn't make it through, or it was canceled, or the service was lost for some reason. So we did see a fairly significant increase in the loss of service on the Route 9 over that period as well. And when we look at the reasons for canceling a trip, the data I have is showing that there's a lot of different reasons, like traffic, maintenance, construction, collisions, weather, etc. But the portion attributed to traffic doubled, essentially. So it's really that we're seeing significantly more congestion, resulting in loss of service, resulting in additional overloads that are exacerbating the problem there. But happy to kind of go more granular with the councillor on that at some point as well. And the 415, I think we had looked into as well, that there were trips that were not happening, largely tied to congestion around the roundabout there. And so, specifically, I think, if I'm recalling correctly, there was a trip on the Route 24 that when it was finished, it would go to Mumford and then start another trip outbound on the 415, but it was getting so late that by the time I got back to Mumford, the 415 trip was being canceled because it should have already happened. So we are looking to kind of decouple those and try to address it in that situation. And I think it's a good conversation and thing to look into more. And so just looking quickly at the loss of service, we have reported on that for some time, but it is really big picture. I'm happy to take that away and look at revising the report to break that down by route, or perhaps by route and by percentage of trips, because I think a route like the 415 may not show up on our radar if we're looking at, by route generally. So we can take that away and try to add some more content here to really characterize that loss of service and what the impact is, because I think it is an important part of it.
Thank you. My time is up, but I'll come back to speak to this conundrum. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for this. I also wanted to talk about the passenger overloads, and I was just wondering, have we ever been benchmarked against other municipalities? Like, how do we compare with our passenger overloads? Do we know?
I don't know a benchmark off the top of my head. We did frequently benchmark with other regions during COVID. A lot of places call it pass-ups or pass-bys if you're, Googling, but every city tends to be unique, and some people have certain corridors. and areas where there's, high frequency and the overloads aren't as impactful. But I do not think that we have an actual metric that we compare across the board, but I can look into that.
Okay, I was just wondering where we might fit in the grand scheme of things, because it feels like a lot, but I know we do have our congestion issues that you just explained so eloquently, and just compounding the issues. Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, team. Thanks for the presentation. I'm concentrating on two areas: collisions and recruitment and retention. With collisions, is it more frequent seasonally, or is it just the data right across the board? Like, does it happen more in the winter or spring? I have a list, so do you want me to continue? Or just, okay, I'll just wait.
Good afternoon. I'm Stuart McDonald, through the chair to the councillor. Stuart McDonald, Acting Director, Employee Support and Development. So can you repeat the question for me again?
So with collisions, is it more frequent seasonally, or does it happen right across the board, the data that you collected, like winter more than spring, etc.?
Okay. We would definitely see some increase in collisions, during weather events and things like that. Obviously, that would affect. So yeah, you would definitely see trends, seasonal, and different types of collisions based on weather events.
So in that case, is there more training planned for drivers being trained in the winter or in the high frequency of collisions in those seasons?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we have trainees that do go out in weather events and still go through training. We have lots that are getting some great experience now over the last couple of weeks. So they are trained to drive in different conditions, daytime, nighttime, things like that as well. As well as we have some ongoing training and some training minutes and materials that are put out by the training department for tips on driving to the conditions as they rise.
And just to stay with that, so does the lack of driving experience play a part in the increase in collisions with those who don't have as much experience driving in the city as opposed to those who do?
I would say, based on for new operators, you're saying, we require folks to come in with driving experience. Whether that's with a commercial vehicle or not, what we do provide or have things that we look for when we're in recruitment, that they come with previous driving experience and clean abstracts and good driving records already and good driving habits, and then we reinforce that through training. So I wouldn't. There are a variety of new operators that come with a vast amount of experience in driving from previous. So it's something we really track of how much winter driving experience someone has before they get hired.
Okay, so I'm going to go to recruitment and retention. So are there exit interviews being done for those who leave? And if so, are there any trends being captured of why the people leave?
Exit interviews are available. They would be tracked and captured by the HR department, and I don't have any information back on any feedback from them in front of me right now. But I'm happy to reach out for them and see if they have any. Often they're not filled out. There's a survey that is provided, but I wouldn't have any information on that right now. But I can look for more information and try and get it to you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
Thank you. So back to my conundrum of, when the bus is unreliable, you have more people choosing cars. When you have more people choosing cars, you have an increase in loss of service and overloads because buses aren't performing. the cycle goes on. I mean, this is in a context of Spryfield, which is a growth center, significant amount of new development happening now. A lot of that was approved with, the belief that the new residents would be using transit. But if, we can't rely on transit, people are going to have cars. The road, if we look at Herring Cove Road, we know that it's been over capacity since 2019. So, I understand your challenge 100%. It's a challenge for the community as a whole. And we do have some significant projects coming up. It has been identified for bus rapid transit. We do have the Herring Cove functional plan. That is happening very, slowly. I know they're going as fast as they can, and that a lot of it is contingent on getting funding. But it's a real conundrum out there about how to fix this problem. One of the things that we are discussing with the budget is looking at an increase in service for the Route 9A, 9B. By adding buses, which might help with that loss of service and the overloading and the on-time I don't know about the on-time performance because we still have the congestion. But if more people are taking buses, it means that we have fewer cars on the road. It won't keep up with the amount of growth that we're having, however. So, I'm just wondering, and I know that this is a budget conversation and a core level of service plan, but by adding those buses, if we can get those buses added to the Route 9AB, how will that positively impact the loss of service and the overload issues?
Thank you through the chair. The additional services on the Route 9, I think there's as the councillor was speaking to, it is a large, complex behavioral changes. And I think there's a few ways that there could be an impact. One is that part of the intent is to increase weekend service, which we know there's a lot of demand for and not enough service. The more people that see transit as a reliable option 7 days a week, the fewer people make the choice to buy a car and add to that congestion that the buses are stuck in. So the weekend service may not seem to help with weekday overloads, but it is part of that bigger picture. A key part of the core service plan is also the PM peak trips on the Route 9, and that is when we are seeing the most overloads. So if there are some, then hopefully there's a bus shortly coming behind the one that's been overloaded, so that'll give us more kind of on the ground resources to firstly, just the overall volumes we're seeing at peak, even if we weren't running in congestion, like there's significant volume there. So we do think those additional resources will help. And then in the instances where a trip is lost or late, there's, another one coming behind. I would say something else in the core service plan that is related. In year one, we are proposing rescheduling of the Route 24. Which is a different route, but because a lot of the routes in the kind of area end up getting tied together in some way, that route being late, almost all of the time is impacting the performance of a lot of the routes in the Spryfield area. So rescheduling of that 24 and having more recoup time and breaks between the routes will also, kind of directly impact the overall reliability in the area, we feel. So it's, I think, a very complex problem. It takes multiple prongs to try to address it, but that's some of the ways.
Right. So essentially, like, we're short of getting bus rapid transit and doing the Herring Cove functional plan, really the only way to kind of get to some better metrics here is to add some buses and the rescheduling. So it is really critical. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't see any other questions on the board, but I have a few questions I'd like to ask from the chair, if that's okay. Thank you. I'm just wondering if we could hear a little bit more about, the fare increase, the impact of the fare increase, It's a bit concerning when our ridership is flatlining and we've had an increase in population. We'd hope to see a corresponding increase in ridership. So could you just say how you know that the fare increase had that impact, and how we're planning to build ridership through the core services plan? Thank you.
Certainly, and I think there is a lot of evidence over time here and in other regions around the impact of fare increases on ridership. So there is an elasticity model that is widely used across the country. We've used it ourselves for more than 20 years, and we can put in, a 10% increase in what we expect the impact on ridership to be. I would say and so we have reliably used it before, and there's external factors that can impact it, but it is the best measure we have. And that's when we are, proposing a fare increase or it's being discussed, we would input into that model to project our revenue. In many cases, if ridership is relatively flat, the fare increase decreases ridership. So you have a net increase in revenue, but ridership goes down. In our case, we were in a very positive growth mode and ridership was growing a lot, which is why we think we've stayed flat and not seen an actual dip in ridership. But we would have otherwise expected continued growth, which we've seen for a few years. So there absolutely could be something else. There's definitely many things external that are coming into play. There could be something else external that's driving some of the numbers that we're not thinking of. But we do think that it was predictable to see ridership really either decline or flatten after the fare increase. So we are attributing it to that.
Okay, thank you. And then how are we hoping to boost ridership numbers with the core services plan?
Yes, absolutely. The core service plan really looks at, three main pillars of changes. One is, investing to focus on areas where there is demand today, where there's reliability issues, and then also strategically for growth. So we think with the core service plan, we're really targeting the areas where we'll get, for lack of a better expression, really good bang for our buck. And as Hugh alluded to, the changes on the Route 10 last year had an over 40% increase in ridership. The changes on the Route 90 a few years ago was a 25% increase in peak ridership. So some of those changes, to the Route 3 and the Route 9, we do expect those higher number lifts from those changes, really trying to target the investment where we do think ridership will have the biggest impact, both in terms of revenue and then generally, congestion and the entire cycle.
Thank you very much. Prompted another question, I guess, from Deputy Mayor Cuttle.
Not so much a question as a point of clarification. I just want to note on the weekday passengers per hour chart, with the 415, you have midday and you have PM peak. That is only a peak time bus. So you have 3 buses in the morning and you have 3 buses in the evening. I've asked for that to be adjusted. There's a 3:30, 4:30, and 5:30 bus, or 3:45 or in that ballpark when it shows up on time. So if you combined those two, I think you'd be pretty close to the threshold of actually meeting the ridership guidelines. The way it's split there gives a false impression of what's happening. There's no really midday buses. I know the earliest one is 3:30, and maybe that's why you've categorized it as midday. But I think it does a disservice to the metrics. So it doesn't give the whole picture. And again, I'm going to advocate for an additional bus. I hear so many people wish there was a 6:45 bus. Students who are taking evening courses at university, myself, I can't, if I'm here till 5, I can't usually make that 5:45 bus. I can't take the bus. So, even looking at adjustments to that scheduling as well, you might, and consistency, you might see an even greater increase, because if you're meeting the threshold in the PM peak, there's no reason why you wouldn't meet it in the AM peak, except that it's not a reliable service in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Was there a point of clarification there, or I think we may have, did you want to respond to that, Patricia? Or?
Certainly, I think that is a fair comment. The time must fall within the midday period, but we would consider the 4:15 to just have peak service, so we'll get that cleaned up.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Patricia and Hugh, for those insights and presentation. Next, we have correspondence, petitions, and delegations. Oh, sorry. Next, we have notices of tabled matters. There are none. And Clerk, do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence or petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. So that brings us to presentations, and we have a presentation from David Truman. Welcome. From the Halifax Cycling Coalition, Prioritization of Cycling Infrastructure Projects. Okay, thank you. You've been here before, so you know that you have 10 minutes for your presentation, and the clerk will give you a signal when you're getting close to the end of your time. Welcome, please go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to speak here. Good afternoon. It was a lovely day for a bike ride, and I do mean that seriously. And all the protected bike lanes on the way here were nicely cleared. Unfortunately, Windsor Street with the painted bike lane was inundated with snow, so I had to ride in traffic on that, which, of course, most people would not be comfortable doing. So today I'm here to speak, by the way, I'm the co-chair of Halifax Cycling Coalition, and I'm here to speak about prioritization of cycling infrastructure. So what is prioritization? It's really just the rank ordering of the projects, in this case, as we're proposing, ordered by impact. So you maximize the impact delivered over time, and you deliver the most impactful segments soonest. And this, of course, just makes the best use of limited funds available. And you can see this in the graph representation. The top graph has delivering highest impact projects first, and the lower one is lowest impact projects first. And you can see that over time, you've delivered more impact or value if you deliver high impact first. It's not a surprise. It's a fairly obvious finding. So why am I speaking about this now? Well, certainly cycling infrastructure is under attack by the mayor, some councillors, and the province, even more so thanks to the latest budget. Road violence is at an all-time high. Over 100 people, we broke the 100 mark this year for people cycling injured while riding. And that's according to the police data for the entire year. The rhetoric that is targeting people cycling has increased driver aggression. We see this every day on the roads when we're riding. So we need that separation of bicycles from motorized vehicles. And finally, there is no guarantee that funding will continue, so it makes sense to deliver the highest impact or the highest value first. So how to prioritize? Now, I'm going to set out our suggestions for how things could be prioritized. We're not trying to be prescriptive here, though. We're suggesting that this is a way that you could go about it, and hopefully staff will be able to go away and establish their own criteria in consultation with stakeholders and do something perhaps like this. So the 5 factors that we're suggesting should be involved in the criteria are the degree of improvement in the facility. And I'm going to talk about each of these separately, so I'll just go over them quickly now. The total population served, equity considerations, serving underserved communities, the connectivity enhancement of the network. So adding a segment increases the connectivity of the entire network, and the directness of a route. with access to schools, universities, hospitals, stores, etc. Just key points that people want to get to. So handling first the degree of improvement of the facility, we are suggesting you could just rate it from 1 to 2, and this is a multiplicative factor. So for example, if you add a painted bike lane to a collector street, something like Windsor, let's say it didn't have painted bike lanes and you're proposing painted bike lanes, then it gets a factor of 1.2. These numbers are arbitrary, it's just for illustration purposes. On the other hand, if you take a quiet residential street and you call it a local street bikeway and you add sharrows and signs and some speed tables, it really doesn't improve the safety or the comfort very much at all. So this gets a 1.1 according to us. But now if you take that local street bikeway and you follow NACTO standards for reduction of traffic volume and speed, and really the only way to do that in Halifax with our aggressive drivers is with modal filters that don't allow cars to cut through the neighborhood. If you do all that though, then we would give it a 1.5. It's a comfortable route, safe for most people. And of course, the gold standard is one-way protected cycleways on either side of a busy road, maybe an arterial or a major collector, with concrete curb separation, and that would get the highest rate of 2. So the next factor in the ranking is the population served. So a very simple way to do this is you say, okay, here's the proposed segment. Take every census dissemination area on either side of that segment. If it's within 200 meters, you count the population in that CDA. Now then that's your base score. You go back over all those CDAs. If there's a significant population of an underserved community, such as Black community, Mi'kmaq, or low income, then you double the population served just to boost up the weighting of that, the importance of that segment. And connectivity. This is a little more technical, but once again, we're rating it from 1 to 2. And on the right, you can see the bikes counted in 2025 by the HRM bike counters for all these different segments. And you can see that Vernon, South Park, and the bridge stand out as being very heavily used. So as an example, if we had a new segment that connected the bridge in a viable way that most people could use to, say, South Park, whether directly or via other safe, comfortable segments, then this would get a very high rating and boost that bridge connection right up to the top of the charts. On the other hand, if you're in a low density neighborhood and it doesn't connect to any existing segments, then you would get a very, very low rating on this connectivity. So the overall impact score is very straightforward. You just take the population served, which is going to be a big number, maybe tens of thousands or more. You multiply it by the degree of improvement between 1 and 2, multiply it by the connectivity index from 1 to 2, and multiply it by an index of directness and destination served with a value from 1 to 2. So, you might have a score as high as 8 times the population served, where the population is actually boosted up by equity deserving communities. And of course, once you get the scores for all the proposed segments, you just rank them from highest to lowest, and then you do everything possible to build in that order, to implement in that order. We realize sometimes there are extenuating circumstances where like the Dartmouth Harbourfront Trail, which is blocked indefinitely due to property acquisition. So, clearly prioritization, it may be happening now, but if it is, the criteria are obscure and not transparent to us. Perhaps it's based on convenience or minimizing impact to drivers. I don't know. But if this approach on prioritization had been done from the beginning, we would now have a much more impactful connected network than we do. And a prime example is that bridge connection. If that bridge connection was currently available and viable and accessible to a wide spectrum of the population, then we would see those numbers on the bridge, doubling, tripling, quadrupling. One interesting thing is that the bridge, those numbers, they don't go down in bad weather nearly as much as some other segments, which says to me those are people that are using that for essential travel. So it's just everything about those bridge numbers. Okay, my time is almost up. So our recommendation is that you ask staff to consult with stakeholders and go over this scheme and see if we can come to some agreement on it. And I'd like to say that it is vital that all HRM residents have attractive, affordable transportation choices. So we're proposing that this schema of prioritization should extend well beyond the region center to connect all our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any questions. I do have one question, if I could ask it from the chair. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the issues with the bridge connection, if you could. I mean, there is a separated area there for people to cycle, but what do you see as the key issue with the bridge connection?
Yeah, the problem is on the Halifax side. If you're going from Halifax to Dartmouth, you have to go all the way down a very steep hill to Barrington and then climb back up that steep hill, which is fine if you're athletic or you have an e-bike, but otherwise you're out of luck. And similarly, when you come back from Dartmouth, you have to go all the way down to Barrington and then climb all the way up North Street, which is in itself not a very friendly place to be riding. So, while we're getting, high ridership on the bridge, we're just scratching the surface in terms of the potential of people that we could be serving with that connection.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation. Next, we have public participation. Speakers can participate for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. Speakers can participate in person if they're present in the chamber. And Zoom pre-registration was required prior to 4:30 the business day before the meeting. Today we have one pre-registered speaker, Derek Belmore. Welcome. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Very good. Okay, yeah. Derek Belmore, District 10. So I kind of wanted to echo David's points there about the value of the connectivity. And I also wanted to go over just the cost benefit of investing in these connections as well, just very briefly. I know the discussion came up that's coming up soon about complete streets, and the main thing I want to talk about today is road safety. So, sorry, I'm a little nervous. So, little just details on the capital budget. So I think around $3 billion is the capital budget this year, right? 1.05 billion of the budget is going into road infrastructure. And of that, that has been discussed most is 65 million in bike lanes, and I believe that's over the next 3 or 4 years. And so that's about 2.2% of the capital budget that's been constantly debated, 6.2% what's being spent on road maintenance and road construction. And I suppose one thing I want to talk about as well is like complete streets, investing in bike lanes. It's not just for bike lanes, it's for just general road improvements overall. It's like it makes driving better, it makes cycling safer, it makes walking safer as well. And there's a report from 2019. I tried finding it for your reference, but I could not find it for the life of me. I will send it to the committee once I finally find the bloody thing. But in 2019, there was a ranking by Allstate of 63 cities of collision reports. Of all those Canadian cities, Halifax came dead last in collision data. And so one of the main complaints we have in this province is like the high insurance rates. That's one of the reasons right there, is because of those high collision rates. And that is mainly comes down to the way our streets are designed. And it's like, this isn't just pedestrians and cyclists, it's just overall road incidents, like car to car as well. And I suppose I could speak briefly about my personal experience. Like, I cycle, I walk, I drove in here today, and almost on a daily basis, I do have a near miss, and it's pretty tragic. That's like that. My fiance is just learning to drive as well, and I fear for her safety when she's driving alone, or when she gets to the point when she is driving alone. Because it's like, I talk about this stuff all the time, and when she started driving, she was like, oh my God, I get it. I get what you're talking about, the road safety thing all the time. And of course, there was a friend of mine who lost someone close to them in a crash in Sackville that killed a mother and her child, unfortunately. My cousin, actually, in a motorcycle accident, was almost killed in Porters Lake. I actually talked to Deputy Mayor a few years ago about this, about a child at a crosswalk that was struck that a friend of mine's dad had to resuscitate on scene. And that just comes down to how we've designed the roads over the years, and like how desperately we need to upgrade the design of the roads to meet the safety standards we've set in place. And I'm going to talk briefly about the economic benefits. Like when we invest in, say, AT infrastructure and transit, like everyone benefits, including the drivers, right? But if we don't, we're all just stuck in traffic. And beyond the economic benefits, the return of investment is people's lives and livelihoods. So my core questions are, so for the 1.05 billion going towards the improvement to road infrastructure, how much of that is going towards, say, the improvements to our road safety as a whole? And how much of that 1.05 billion is going towards improving, like diversifying our transportation options, and in this case, namely improving transit? Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in this afternoon. You're my constituents, so perhaps we could meet afterward, or you could leave your contact information with me and I'll try to get you some answers to those questions. Thank you. So we're still in public participation. Is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak today? Anyone in the gallery who would like to speak? For the third time, is there anyone in the gallery who would like to speak? Very good, thank you. There are no information items brought forward. There are no staff reports. So that brings us to 13.221. The benefits and costs of active mobility infrastructure projects in HRM. Is there anyone who would like to put this motion on the floor? Deputy Mayor?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. As a former member of the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, that the Transportation Standing Committee requests the Chief Administrative Officer to direct staff to prepare a report on a rigorous benefit cost analysis for infrastructure projects and require that all separated bike lane network projects and multi-use pathways projects include a comparison to financial costs and benefits, including safety, health, environmental, and social benefits.
Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Young. Thank you.
I'm no longer part of this committee, so I can't really speak to this motion. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
So this is a recommendation from the Active Transportation Standing Committee to the Transportation Standing Committee. Active Transportation Advisory Committee to the Transportation Standing Committee. So it's really their avenue for providing advice to the committee, and it's up to the committee how they wish to proceed with this. So any member of Transportation Advisory Committee can put any member of Transportation Standing Committee I understand that. Any member of Transportation Standing Committee can put the motion on the floor for consideration. They don't have to specifically be a member of Active Transportation Advisory.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm on the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. I believe this came up because of the budgets the budget debates that were going on between the cost of a multi-use pathway as opposed to bike lanes. So I guess the cost benefits are something that that came up that they want to look into.
Okay, thank you for that background. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. And it's a little kind of deja vu-y. Councillor White had asked for basically this. And I think if memory serves, we voted for some of it, but not our whole thing. And then we got that work that came back as part of the analysis of cheaper options for the regional center bike network that tried to encapsulate it. And, no offense to staff who tried their best with resources available and anything, but honestly, I didn't find it at all useful. And so I kind of wonder, it's so rare that we get motions from committee. So if this is feedback, I kind of hate to say no, but at the same time, I wonder if there's any point, right? Where we've already struck out on this once, in my opinion, in terms of getting back information that was useless. Going back and asking for it again, I don't know that changes anything. And frankly, if you care about evidence and such, I don't know if this is a useful debate to be even having. There's so much evidence out there. Bike transportation is efficient. It's super cheap. We know it provides all sorts of benefits in terms of environment, health, you name it. I kind of feel like whatever debate we're having in this city, it's not more evidence that's going to change anything in terms of making people change their minds on this. So I'm a little uncertain that this is a good idea, a good use of resources. So I don't know if anyone else has any opinions on that. I see I'm the only one on the board, so.
Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think, and it'll be a high level. Like when you talk about the health benefits, we don't have any health staff. So it's not like they're going to be able to dig into that and come up with, you're going to prevent so many heart attacks and you're going to reduce, obesity by this much. But there is reports from, say, Nova Scotia Health that we could access to get that information. So it'll be at a high level. But I think it's always good to have evidence. And frankly, if you pour more evidence out and people still go against it anyway, I think that says something about the people who are saying going against the evidence. So like I've said many, many times, I'm always in favor of more information. And so I'm happy to have staff go back and work on this and see what they can bring back. That would be useful.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Councillor Austin.
Well, it occurs to me that this is a motion, and we got Lucas sitting up there. Maybe I could ask him a direct question on this. If this motion passes, what do you guys do with it? Because you literally already had this motion, basically.
Through the chair to the councillor, appreciate the extra information argument for sure, but you know, we have a lot of infrastructure that is ongoing everywhere across this community, whether it's AAA or just AT or active transportation program for schools or MUPS or whatever it is. And I think, to your point, a lot of the benefits, they can't be translated to dollars on a leg of AAA network. To Councillor Cleary's point, yes, it reduces heart attacks, makes people healthier, is safer, all very true. Trying to get a comparison on a dollar value is extraordinarily difficult. And I think it would be a generalized sort of discussion around the benefits of bike lanes, which, to your point, I think we kind of already understand.
Yeah, I'm inclined not to support it just because not because I don't think bike lanes are important. I've certainly advocated hard for them, but just because I feel like this is just going to burn up time for not really any real bang back. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cuddle.
Thank you. I was just going to ask staff for their opinion on this. I think we just received it, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Are we ready for the question? Question's been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion fails. Thank you. That brings us to in-camera. I don't believe we have any in-camera agenda, but we do have in-camera minutes that we could pass without going in camera if someone wants to move that. Councillor Purdy.
Thank you. I move that the in-camera, in-private minutes of February 9th, 2026 be approved and circulated.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Austin. All those in favor? Any of those opposed? Motion carries. Oh, yeah. Does anyone have any motions? It indicates that I don't think anyone has any motions, but I skipped over that, so no motions. Are there any added items? Any notices of motion? That brings us to the date of our next meeting, March 26th. Could someone move to adjourn? Thank you, Councillor Austin. Thanks, everyone.